there's news that a new strain of COVID is breaking out in England, and they say it's 70% more transmissible than the one here in the US. So in response, our first plan of action must be to send Harry and Meghan back to London. Ladies and gentlemen, welcome to Ruthless.
U.S. Supreme Court Justice Ruth Bader Ginsburg has died.
Judge Amy Coney Barrett.
If Joe Biden wins, Democrats can sack the courts.
You're a lying dog-faced pony soldier.
Maybe that's a question you should ask China.
Anyway, my time's up.
I'm not thinking, Mr.
That's
President.
okay. I know you're not thinking. You never do. It's a whole hoax. And you know who's playing into the hoax? People like you and the fake news media.
We are born free and we will stay free.
There you go. Sounds
like a good plan.
I've supported that from the beginning, even before COVID. Well, we got an action-packed episode today, don't we, Josh?
We got a huge episode today. Our good friend, Guy Benson, has joined us for the second half, and I know how you feel about that.
Yeah, we're making an exception. Typically, we don't allow gentlemen significantly under 6 feet tall on the show, but, Guy is a friend, so we're going to allow him this exception.
He's a whale guy. He's really entertaining. He's funny. And we try to give a little bit of a backstory on who Guy is. Everybody sees him on Fox and sees his commentary and his books and everything else. But we try to get a little insight into Guy, and we had a good time with it.
Yeah. It was very nice of you letting him on the show. So what do we have in the lineup today? We've got the news cycle has been pretty interesting, even though we've got Christmas upon us. The news doesn't end, does it?
No, it sure doesn't. We've got a COVID package to cover and the media fallout, both sides, which has been completely humiliating for the Fourth Estate. Again, like every single day is, but this one is just exceptionally bad. One thing I wanted to cover before we got to that, though, we did the Christmas gift episode last Thursday and got a lot of just tremendous feedback on it. Smug people seem to love it.
Yeah, it was a great episode.
It was a great episode. I think you provided some very good overview of what you ought to buy certain family members. But there was also, some tangible things. One thing that we left out. This holiday season, give the gift of Chinese espionage. Get your fella a fang bang.
How is Swalwell not facing more trouble over this? Other than a Fox News reporter camped outside his house whenever he comes home from a run in the morning, no one is asking him any questions. Pelosi, none of the Dems are like, you know what, we've got a guy compromised over here. They're totally okay with it. It's unbelievable.
Fang bang shows up, and apparently now, see, here's the funniest thing about this for me. Is that all 4 congressional leaders have now been briefed on his sexual encounters, allegedly, with Fang Fang. And
imagine sitting through that meeting, because they've got the details of what's going on, and so you've got to sit there with your fellow congressional leaders, being nodding along. Yep, okay. On this night, this happened. Okay, yep.
So my favorite part is that McCarthy emerged from this and was like, "No, you shouldn't be on Intel. If you heard what I heard, man."
Can you imagine? I don't even think I'd want to sit in on that meeting. I don't want to know these details.
Well, I'll depart from you there. I want to know every single possible. I want to know everything there is to know about Fang Fang and about the encounters. And just like Jeffrey Toobin, Ruthless is on the case. We are going to dogmatically pursue this story until you, the listener, understand everything there is to know.
I think the story isn't what has been presented to us. I think the honest story here is the torture of Fang Bang and what she had to go through, because good God, I don't care what kind of promotion the Chinese CIA promises you. Well, good God. Oh, man.
There is, much like we present stars at the CIA for fallen officers.
There's a fake.
I feel like there is somewhere in China a Fang Bang wall where they have presented someone who needs to sleep with the likes of Eric Swalwell.
All gave some gave all. Good God. Oh, man. But also it should be said about that great episode that we had on Christmas wish lists and gift giving, folks said, okay, but all jokes aside, what do you get, that gentleman in your life, the gentleman who has everything, or even the gentleman who has nothing right now and needs it? What gift do you get them for the Christmas season?
So I had the good fortune of being able to talk with a bunch of minions over the last couple of days about sincere gifts. And one of the things I kept coming back to was bourbon. I mean, if there's a general appreciation about it, it's got a dignity to it, frankly. Yeah. It's American. It's right there in the Commonwealth of Kentucky, but it's also just, it says something about you if you're a bourbon drinker. And frankly, like, you can't go wrong.
You really can't. I had, on my birthday, folks would ask me, what do you want for a birthday? I said, you know what? Just get me a bottle of bourbon.
Yeah.
I'm not a difficult guy to shop for. Bourbon, you can't go wrong. Someone's going to, think of you for giving them these hours of enjoyment. Hopefully you're spending hours of drinking your bourbon and not just like downing it under one, but it's a gift that you can't go wrong with. So I know you've been sipping on something very decent, Josh.
Yeah, well, I've got currently, like, what's sitting in front of me is this little book. It's called, and little book. If you know your bourbon, it's from the family of Freddie Noe, who's I think he's like 8th generation Jim Beam guy, and came up with a new and old distilling that it's just like, it's fabulous. Everybody loves it. I love it, and I encourage you to get it. But one of the reasons why I think that it is so perfect to get bourbon is because there's a natural escalator here, right? If you've got a lot of money, there's plenty of bourbons to get that are very hard to get and very expensive. Your Pappies of the world and things like that. If this has been a tough year, 2020, which so many of us, it has been a very difficult year. There's also very approachable low end bourbon.
Yeah, let me tell you, like a bottle of Elijah Craig, their standard small batch that you can get at any ABC store across America for under $30, $30. That's honestly probably my favorite sipping bourbon. Like, I never go wrong with a nice bottle of Elijah Craig small batch.
Absolutely. So, look, we've got, if people want to keep DMing about this, I'm happy to keep talking about it because there's a ton of great stuff out there. But
I got some traction. So folks are asking on my Instagram what was one of the bottles I posted. So you get, if you're willing to splurge a little bit on yourself, this isn't one of the Pappies, but if you're willing to spend a little more, I got my hands on a bottle of Stag Junior. They come out, I think, twice a year. You can get batches of it, and one just dropped last week. And I encourage folks out there, this is a great gift. See if you can get your hands on it. I'm telling you, in a week or two, you're going to spend double what you can get it for right now. And it sips like magic. So that's on my list. You want a good stocking stuffer or gift? There you go.
I love it. All right. So topic one, let's get to this stuff. We're talking about the coronavirus bill, and I am laughing my ass off at the media coverage of this thing because they've got Nancy Pelosi, who's twisted herself into pretzels all summer long, trying to justify basically not negotiating and saying, actually, let's play audio on this. There's a clip of Nancy saying nothing is better than something. Let's play that.
Is it better to go forward with some? No, it isn't. Thank you so much for that question, because I hear it a lot, and clearly it springs from all the good intentions we all have to help people as soon as we can. So don't be misled by thinking, oh, well, a little bit is better than nothing. No, it isn't.
Isn't something better than nothing?
No. And so when people say, as some of you do, isn't something better than nothing? No. And some of you have asked, isn't something better than nothing? No.
So this is what she's got, right? This is what she's saying is nothing is better than something basically all summer long. What the nothing that came up, that they came up with is basically what she's now in front of cameras saying is like this grand bipartisan achievement.
It's honestly, it's shameful the way that the media has covered this and not brought up that purely for political reasons. And she has said herself she was waiting until the election. So purely for political reasons, the Dems stalled getting relief to Americans who are suffering due to these shutdowns. It's unbelievable.
We don't even have to take your word for it. We got audio on that too. Let's get the audio queued up of Pelosi saying that she's going to do a deal now just because Biden has been elected.
Game changer. A new president and a vaccine. So there's nothing to, these are different. What was then before was not more of this. This has simplicity. It's what we've had in our bills. It's for a shorter period of time, but that's okay now because we have a new president.
So I just don't know how Democrats continue to justify this, because if you remember right before the election, Mnuchin, the Secretary of the Treasury, went to House Democrats, much to Republicans' uncomfortability, frankly, and said the president is willing to sign something that is as large as $1.8 trillion, right? Mm-hmm. And I mean, there's a lot of people, including me, speculating that Senate Republicans would have a tough time passing something like that. Like it was massive. But he offered it, and she said no, she won't do it. And what was clearly the calculation that she made at the time is that it was going to hurt the president in his reelection if the American people were fundamentally in a worse place economically than they would be if she provided the relief. It's the most cynical, ugly political calculation you can make. But as she's sitting in front of her two freezers eating ice cream, that's what she makes consistently.
Yeah. And like I said, I have to go back to the way that, our journalists, our brave firefighters have covered this. There was this tweet by Sarah Ferris, who is the congressional reporter for Politico, saying that McConnell's on the floor saying there was no reason this package couldn't have been signed into law multiple months ago. Clearly. She said, this will infuriate Dems who've been trying to pass COVID relief since May. Have they really? Have they really? We've got the audio and the facts to back it up, and these people call themselves reporters.
I mean, part of the problem that we have, and I don't know this lady, but part of the problem we have is that in journalism today, particularly on Capitol Hill, a lot of smart, talented, totally naive, completely young reporters get their start there. And what happens is that they get assigned a beat. Mm-hmm. And she has been assigned the Pelosi beat. Right. And how do you get good stories out of the Pelosi environment? But it's to say stuff like that. Stuff that's like, hey, the sky is red.
Yeah.
Right. I mean, I'm going to ignore every bit of reality that's presented itself over the last 6 months, and I'm going to give the Pelosi talking points on Twitter. I mean, I hope that resulted in a good story for it, because it's just like nonsense.
It's sad. And, I was talking to one of the few reputable journalists last week. And we were talking about how absurd the coverage has been of the Dems and specifically of Biden. And he was like, you know what? A lot of my coworkers have basically agreed to push whatever talkers the Dems want, hoping they'll get access. And they get access, and it's nothing. You just get more, talking points. That's what they sold out for. It's pathetic.
At some point, they're going to wake up and realize they've made a tremendous error, right? They had an administration that provided unparalleled access. You got unvarnished thoughts of the president of the United States on a day-to-day basis. And what they traded it for was a bunch of establishment hacks that are going to do, all kinds of left ridiculousness through the agencies, and then give you the straight-faced nod and, oh, nothing to see here on the record stuff from the podium. And that's like not where we are as a society, right? The American people are not in a place where they're willing to have just sort of like a public service announcement every day.
And I want to get one last audio clip in this section, because I think it's important. The role of Ruthless is basically to provide the people with the facts that the journos and the mainstream media will not give them. Our friend Steve Guest pulled a great video the other day of Nancy Pelosi on September 21st, 2020, saying she was proud Democrats blocked corona relief from reaching the American people. Let's run that clip.
And the Republicans have put forth an emaciated, as Chuck Schumer calls it, an emaciated bill. And I'm so proud that every Senate Democrat voted against it.
This is the skinny bill.
The emaciated bill, yeah.
Okay, all right.
The skinny bill.
I'll give it to you.
And when people call it a skinny deal, I said, there's no such thing as a skinny deal.
I mean, it just says it all.
Yep, black and white.
It
So
just says it all.
And the way that these journals are just trying to gaslight the American people is shameful.
And they don't, like, if you were to take in a minute of analysis, like, look, 20 years ago, the role of journalists were to analyze what it is that these guys are doing and tell the American public what the news is, right? The news here is that there is a package that is about to pass that will help a lot of segments of the United States of America, no question about it. A lot of people that need help, it will do that. Is it everything? No. Is it a good place to land? It is. But this package looks almost identical to what Mitch McConnell introduced in July, what he talked about in August, what they voted on in Senate Democrats filibustered, which Nancy Pelosi says she's proud of, in September and October, and said that she wasn't going to do anything until or unless Trump was defeated. That is the reality that we're living in. And unless you either listen to this program or you are extremely active on Twitter, you would have no idea.
Yeah. It's shameful that Dems blocked coronavirus relief for this long. And it's shameful that the media acted as their complete enablers and gaslit the public on this, which is, a nice seg into our next section. Speaking of absurd reporters pushing the Dem talking points and gaslighting the public, news broke the other day that Sam Stein has joined Politico as White House editor.
I mean, so if you consume any political media at all, you know that Sam Stein is a avowed liberal. He doesn't try to apologize for it. In fact, in some ways, I kind of respect him because he's just out in the open with it. He worked at Huffington Post. He's a contributor at MSNBC. He's a regular on Morning Joe. He's now before this job, the editor at the Daily Beast. If you look at his Twitter account, it is consistently attacking Republicans, Republican points of view, the administration, everything. That's just who he is. That's fine. We've got folks like Sam Stein too. The difference is, imagine at some point if a major publication like Politico announced that Smug or I were in charge of their political editing.
Yeah. And a lot of folks, because it's not like he's the most famous guy. A lot of folks might not know who the hell Sam Stein is. Let me just give you a little intro into who he is with this tweet that he sent out on November 16th. It says, according to Biden campaign metrics, online chatter about the Hunter Biden story during the elections last week was greater than it was around Hillary's emails during the last month of 2016. The difference? It never spilled over into mainstream outlets. He is just like spiking the football on hiding the news about Hunter Biden before the election. And now what do we know about that, folks? Now what do we know? It's become apparent to everyone that, Hunter Biden is a crook, and we have a special counsel looking into this.
So this guy's official position is, congratulations, journos, on doing the collusions with the Biden campaign to make sure the American people didn't know the truth about what was being propagated out into the public by, at that point, the New York Post, which is, you remember, Twitter suspended their account.
Unbelievable.
We're actually saying what we now know to be true.
You want collusion and election interference? What was done to hide that Hunter Biden story? There you go. It's unbelievable. And they did it in plain view. And that's the thing, is now he gets a promotion. This is the guy whose job is now supposed to be, as White House editor, to be, the critical eye covering the Biden administration, when he spiked, the football on covering up the Hunter Biden story. And they're doing it openly.
And it's not one instant. The funny thing is it also illustrates how much worse the media has become. There's always been a liberal bias. We get it. Everybody lives in New York, Washington, D.C., L.A., San Francisco, liberal places, right? So there's an element of just basically being around your surroundings and having a liberal tint. But what has happened over the last 4 years has been so dramatic that a guy like Sam, who, by the way, I know Sam. Sam is like one of those guys. It's like your liberal friend, right? You don't agree on anything. I happen to think Sam's actually a nice guy. I get along with him pretty well. I would never put him in charge of news information.
Yeah.
Are you kidding me? Like, that's to talk about the fox in the hen house. But like, I love, again, and I know you mentioned him earlier, but Steve has got the best stuff.
Yeah. Steve Guest, folks. If you don't follow him on Twitter already, you really should.
You really should. So he did this really funny, really tricky deal where he sent out a tweet as himself saying, this is really troubling. We're blurring the lines between news and punditry even further than opening ourselves up to legitimate questions about readers and the White House press corps and where they get information. So you're like, oh, well, that was kind of like an introspective tweet for a guy who does rapid response for the Republican National Committee. Well, what he didn't tell you is that was a quote from the New York Times' Peter Baker when the White House press corps admitted Sam Stein back in 2012. He was troubled. This is like one of the dean of the press corps at the White House. He was so troubled by his admission into the press corps at the time that he felt like he needed to speak out against a fellow journalist.
Folks, when the New York Times thinks someone has too much of a liberal bias,
oh,
wow.
Wowie. Wow.
That's got to be a warning sign. This is the thing is, why you should care about this. This is about a journo who spiked a story that would have ruined Joe Biden getting this promotion, and they're doing this in plain sight. Know that no one will call them out on it. And that is why this show exists. That's why Ruthless exists.
Exactly.
You're never going to hear about this from anyone else in the media. It's just brazen.
Everybody's going to sit around and say, gosh, how did this happen? How is it that we continue to have such a leftward lens on there political reality that doesn't exist to these people? The reason is that they keep doing this. It would be no exaggeration to say the Politico has hired Comfortably Smug as their White House editor.
Yeah. Imagine that. Like, Josh and I are great friends, but he knows that would be a bad idea. If it would be a bad idea. Trump. Shit, I admit I would not be, unbiased covering President Trump. But that's, this is the thing is, remember how, journalists say Obama didn't have any scandals? Well, here we go again. When the folks who are supposed to be watching the hen house, this is unbelievable, and they're doing it in plain sight. This is why Obama didn't have any scandals, because all the journalists wanted to be his friends. Yeah, well, so guess what? Keep tuning into Ruthless, because we're not going to bury our heads in the sand here, and we're going to hold people accountable. Frankly, like I said, Sam is somebody that I get along with. I'm more than happy to rake him through the coals here, because this is bullshit. Mm-hmm. This should not happen. This is why we have such a broken media culture in America. And the fact that they did it unapologetically, that they felt like they didn't even need to put spin on it. Like that Sam didn't have to put out a statement saying like, look, I know I've done opinion journalism forever, but my commitment is to the news. He didn't even do that. Yeah. He didn't even need to do it. And it's a cavalcade on Twitter of congratulations for Sam in his new job. Congratulations. I am certain that you're going to provide even footing for Republicans going forward. Right. Yep. Congrats, Journo. Twitter is the worst, by the way. Like, ugh. It's the worst. But, speaking of being friends with liberals, we have an interesting interview today, a great interview. Friend of the pod, Guy Benson. And like I had mentioned earlier, folks, you might get a little fake news. Short guys tend to stick together, so avowed Rubio supporter Guy Benson may provide some fake news on some people's sides. I can't speculate. I haven't heard the interview, but he's still a friend of the pod. Great guy. He's a gentleman. He's funny. Not all of us always agree on everything, but I will always agree that this guy is good for commentary. Man, he keeps it light. He's generationally appropriate. He's not giving us the back in my day crap that we hear from so many off the right. He's just a really solid commentator. And so here's the interview. Well, here we are. We're back with an unbelievable interview. Something I know that our
listeners have been looking forward to for quite some time since we previewed this on the Guy Benson Show. It's television personality Guy Benson. How are you, sir?
I'm awesome. It's great to be here. Although I do find it always disappointing on Ruthless that Smug doesn't participate in these interviews. I don't know where the little guy is. I mean, is he just too busy for this? Is he off fundraising for Marco? I don't know. But maybe one day he'll deign to participate in a Ruthless interview.
Well,
not today.
Something tells me his plan is to bracket this interview because he had heard the commentary that you'd had, and he felt the need to sort of come in on both sides.
Oh, I see. So he's going to pre-butt and rebut the interview without live ammo from me.
Yeah,
going toe to toe. Okay, well that's brave.
Well, and that's just the way we run things here at Ruthless.
No, I know. I'm just kidding. Smug's a genius.
It's Merry Christmas, my friend.
Merry Christmas. We're still allowed to say that for the next few weeks.
We've got a limited shelf life.
It's outlawed again under Joe.
You and Adam have any plans over the holidays, or are you guys just keeping a low profile?
We are going to his parents' house and just having a very tight group there. So I fly out Wednesday. He's already out there, but I got a few Fox obligations. So home alone for the next night or two, just with the dog.
There you go. There you go. That's not bad all this time of year either, though. You're going to have a lot of family obligations. It sounds like the next couple of days, you might as well take a load off, have a bourbon or two.
Yeah, bourbon sounds nice. And the thing is it's a little sad because we have so many really good family traditions around Christmas, and I'm not going to be seeing my direct family at all this year because we just decided my parents are, retired and the comorbidity issue there, and we're just playing it safe. I'm flying to Colorado. I don't view flying as a huge risk, but it's going to be a small group out there. So we're just trying to split the difference here, being safe, not being, overtly flaunting of guidelines, doing our part without just completely shutting the whole thing down, which I know some people are doing.
Yeah.
And I respect that. It's like a hybrid approach.
Yeah, you're hardcore like that. Let me ask you a couple of bio questions because I think everybody gets a chance to see you and appreciate your commentary on Fox. They don't know. You grew up in New Jersey? Did I read that correctly?
Well, I grew up overseas and then New Jersey. So born in the Middle East, grew up in Southeast Asia, and then moved back to the New York area where my parents are both from. And we're deciding among a few different potential sort of counties in the tri-state area to settle in, and we picked Bourbon County, New Jersey, a town called Ridgewood. Loved it. Great place to grow up.
Your folks still living around the area? Or
they finally threw in the towel on New Jersey taxes. Yeah. And so their beach house that they had is in Massachusetts. So they picked the worst tax states possible, right? So we might as well have one terrible tax situation as opposed to both.
They were sort of rooting for Nancy Pelosi in the salt issue then, I imagine.
I actually wasn't because on principle, it was important for that deal to go through. And I do find it hysterical that they were trying to put that into a COVID relief bill. Tax cuts for rich blue state people was crucial to our national recovery from this pandemic. Amazing. It's the Democrats, I'll remind you, the Democrats we're trying to pull that off.
Which somehow went totally unnoticed, which we'll get to in a minute by our national media.
Gosh, I wonder how.
Well, these people, and this is the second point I was going to get into here. These people. You went to Northwestern. You're a proud Wildcat.
Yeah, go Cats.
Yeah. And so you basically, from my understanding, that means that you basically went to school with every journalist alive.
There's a lot of us.
There's a ton.
Yeah.
So how do you emerge from overseas New Jersey and Northwestern as a conservative? I would think that it'd almost be unavoidable to be indoctrinated as a lib at that point.
Well, what I liked about my time there was definitely a left of center school. Most people were sort of by default lefty, especially on social issues, but it wasn't radical. It wasn't a radically left-wing place. It's gotten a little bit more radical parts of it, like a sliver of sort of the woke left there, as is true on a lot of campuses. But I felt like I could actually say things, and I did. I got booed and hissed in class. That happened. I got into a huge debate with a journalism professor who was the most intimidating journalism professor they had. I don't know if she's still there. Ava Greenwell, African-American woman, which is relevant to the story, which is why I mentioned her race, really, really good and like the toughest prof. And I had her for kind of the biggest crown jewel class in my journalism curriculum. And she brought up in class one day, the student newspaper, the Daily Northwestern, had made this big announcement, self-congratulatory, that there had been a whole string of muggings just off campus. And they decided they were going to stop publishing descriptions of the suspects because it perpetuated stereotypes. And she thought this was wonderful. And I'm like, she's like, does anyone disagree? And I look around and it's just like crickets.
Oh,
I'm like, ugh. So I groan and up comes the hand. Like, oh, here we go. And I was like, look, especially with suspects still at large committing crimes against students, I feel like it is who, what, where, when, and why is journalism. So I asked, like, if it was an Asian woman committing these crimes, would that be something that should be censored from the Daily Northwestern? And she was like, oh, I'm not sure. Well, why not?
So there you go.
I'm like, why not? I said, who's perpetuating stereotypes? And so we actually sort of got into it and people were like cringing, but listening with like popcorn. And at the end of the class, I had a few people whisper to me that they agreed.
Oh.
She called me to her office and she was like, I just want to say I really respect that you went toe to toe and made some good points.
You got to love that. See,
yeah.
That's good. That's teaching.
That's okay. See, that's okay. It's like the crazy woke indoctrination where everyone's afraid to talk. It has gotten like, I'm not that young, but I'm not that old. It doesn't seem like that long ago that I was there, but it is so much worse these days. Not just Northwestern. I think actually Northwestern's better than a lot of places because they've got some people there who actually care about free speech, but just in the academy, it has gotten definitely crazier. Like I was supposed to speak at Brown, and I did speak at Brown last couple of years, and they like had this whole manifesto. These left-wing students got a bunch of people to sign it that I shouldn't be allowed to speak because I am a white supremacist.
What?
Because believing in free market capitalism is white supremacy. This was in their manifesto against me, and they called me a bunch of things, including homophobic. And I was like, who wants to tell them? So I showed up. Brown actually did a great job of, they had all these security. They had like armed security. They had a backup plan. They're like, here's your exit route, your escape route, like this crazy stuff. They're like, we've got a live stream set up in an undisclosed location if we have to do it there. I'm like, this is nuts. That's crazy. It's me. It's, it's not like, I'm not like some fringe figure out there, but that's where we are, I guess.
Well, that is just so stunning because, you read about, how some of the more hot button conservatives go to campus and, basically some of them sign up to be protested because it's part of their thing. But for a Guy Benson, host of the Guy Benson show, he's a pretty mainstream conservative.
Very intimidating figure.
I mean, heaven forbid if our children hear the views
physically
of this man.
Imposing. Physically imposing and terrifying. And the last thing I'll say is I remember one guy, one of the security guys, police officers, like, and by the way, we do have people checking bags and other things in case anyone were to bring like a weapon. I'm like, a gun? He's like, well, yeah. And I'm like, these are left-wing Brown students. Ain't nobody got a gun. Yeah. Okay, these are Brown students. And he's like, he sort of chuckled. He's like, fair enough, but we have to. And it ended up going off without like 3 or 4 of them walked out as I very dramatically walked out, like 3 of them. And they live streamed their walkout.
Oh yeah.
It was it was very brave. It was like Selma. I was like, wow, look at these brave people walking out on me. And the rest of them stayed. And I took every question they had, and I even hung out and chatted with them at some length afterwards. And I don't think they were in any mood to change their minds, but like, that's still better than some of these insane alternatives. Anyway, we've gone down a rabbit hole.
Well, no, sis, this is one of the things that we appreciate most about you, Guy, because, in this era, I think we have found clownery on all sides, right? Mm-hmm. And there's this incessant need to beclown each other, beclown ourselves. I've always said that President Trump's great superpower is revealing his critics, but he also reveals his allies, and he sort of strips away the entire theater of politics, and he lifts the curtain and shows you basically who's the fraud and who's not, right? And
a lot of fraud.
And there's a lot of fraud. There's a lot of fraud. But one of the things that we've noticed is a lot of the people that we've come to respect in the
it's a tremendous amount of fraud, quite frankly. Okay.
A lot of people that we've respected for years have become complete clowns in this era.
Mm-hmm.
You've managed to avoid all of this. And I'm curious as to your thoughts. One, if you agree with my assessment, but two, sort of how do you navigate the water here when you're, so easily classified as one of the two, either a sellout or a never Trump or an always Trump, but you're just a conservative guy who gives his conservative thoughts pretty routinely.
Oh, I'm glad that you think that, and I appreciate that. And it means a lot because you so often hear most loudly from the people who are furious with you, right? I feel like we're in an era where shamelessness is like the coin of the realm. It is valued. And just the more shameless you are, the more rewarded you are. Like the incentive is to be a shameless tribal hack.
Yeah.
More so than ever. And the thing is with Trump, like, to me, it hasn't necessarily been that challenging because I was like, quote unquote, never Trump in 2016. I opposed him completely in the primaries. He was, not in my top 16. I didn't vote for him in the general, although of course I didn't vote for Crooked H. And then he won, right? And so at that point, there's like a pivot point for someone in my shoes. Either you are like, well, he's the president now and he's a Republican, so like I'm on the team. Oh, well. Or you're like, well, screw this, I'm in the resistance, which is what a lot of the Never Trump people did. They just became like Lincoln Project clowns, right? And to me, I was like, well, hang on. Now it's easy. I'm sometimes Trump. When Trump is doing things that are right, and Ben Shapiro's used that term, sometimes Trump, when he's doing things that I like and support, I'm not going to like twist my entire ideology into contorted pretzels to be upset about things that I support, which we saw, like there were some mind-blowing ones.
There still is. I mean, it's absolutely incredible.
It's nuts. It's nuts. So when he was doing stuff that I love, I'm like, go for it. There's a clip that gets thrown in my face all the time of me putting on the MAGA hat on Fox because I was paying off a bet, and it was about Gorsuch. And Gorsuch is my favorite justice. It was an amazing pick. All of the president's picks on the Supreme Court have been incredible, and it's one of the greatest legacies, if not the greatest legacy he's got. And because he had put someone amazing on the court, because there was some doubt about who he was going to pick and was he going to stick to the list, I said, if you put a qualified younger constitutionalist on the court, I'm going to wear a MAGA hat on TV. So I did. So people use that against me like I'm a Trumpy
switched.
Hat. Right. They're like, oh, he completely, went in the tank for Trump, which would definitely come as news to the hardcore Trump people who think that I'm still a never Trump hack. Right? I'm a hack in both of their minds. So I've just been sometimes Trump. And I think when he's done stuff that I don't like, there's policy, there's like personal behavior in the tweets and stuff. To me, it's like, okay, is it worth picking this battle to be mad about? So there's a lot of stuff that I didn't like where I was just like, okay, I don't like it, but I'm also not going to lose my mind over it. I'm not going to waste the capital being mad about it because it's really not that important. When I felt like it was important, and a lot of this nonsense that he's pulling after the election, I think is really bad. I'll say it, but I try to pick my spots without just being a fanatical, reflexive person who's going to oppose him all the time. And I think in terms of the way that he governed, in many respects, he vastly outperformed my expectations and basically saved the courts, which is like one of my number one issues. So I don't know. I think he's got a mixed legacy as president. I do find him, I have to admit, like quite entertaining much of the time. He is entertaining. He just is. He can be very funny.
Yeah.
And then sometimes the act, when it starts to cross a line, it wears thin and it becomes an issue. But I don't know. I haven't spent the last 4 years like worshiping the guy or constantly mad about him.
Yeah.
Because neither one is like how I feel.
Right. I mean, do you think that so much of what we've seen out of particularly conservative and liberal media has been this just sort of doctrinaire following? Like basically you just try to get ahead of the parade.
That's Trump train or resistance. Like pick a lane.
Yeah.
And that's it. And anyone trying to do something else is sort of viewed with suspicion by everyone else. But, you know.
So where does that go now? What happens now here? You know, we've got a President-elect Biden. You're going to have Republicans in a resistance camp for the first time in 4 years. You've got, you know, a bifurcated, to say the least, conservative media culture out there. Like where does it head?
I honestly don't know. I know that my number one priority for the last few weeks that I've just been flogging on my show every day is Georgia, because it'll be a lot worse with a Democratic Senate and a Democratic controlled everything. It's a lot better to have, I think if you've got Biden in the White House, Kamala Harris no longer as important as a tie-breaking vote, Nancy Pelosi clinging by a thread to a majority in the House, and Mitch McConnell running the Senate, the outcomes in terms of preserving good things and avoiding bad things will be much, much better than we will with Democratic full control, because I think Biden ultimately is like an old school Senate make a deal kind of guy. If he feels constrained by that, by having McConnell, for example, running the Senate, I think you'll see a much more sort of moderate, gridlock-filled couple of years, which I'm fine with for the most part. If we're not going to have Republican control, there are worse alternatives. But if the Democrats win things back and you've got really crucial issues, 50-50 ties with Schumer running the agenda and Harris showing up and breaking these ties, I mean, that would be really problematic. So I guess between now and January 5th, it's hard for me to really care that much about the future of the party or whatever, because that has to be job number one. And I know you guys have been all over that on Ruthless too.
Yeah, I mean, you couldn't have said it better myself. Everything that we talk about gets exponentially worse if somehow those two Senate seats don't come our way. I mean, you've got everything from statehood for 4 new Democratic senators, DC and Puerto Rico, to, you know, I mean, look, we laugh when we think about things like the Green New Deal and the insanity of the things that they put together. But does anybody really believe there's going to be a Democrat that stands up against that? No.
Or be like the deciding vote against it. And you think, you know, Joe Biden's not going to whip out the veto pen, right? Right. He's not going to stand up to the people in his party way off to the left. But if he's forced to, then I think he'd almost like secretly be relieved. Like he went down to Georgia, nationalized those races. I'm like, is he trying to make them lose? Because the thing is about Georgia too, and this is my last thought on Georgia. Obviously, like the math, like the basic math on the stage, it all comes down to these seats and control of the Senate. Like you could take the names completely out of it and just be, you know, generic Republican A and B, Democrat A and B. It wouldn't really matter because of what's at stake. That aside, John Ossoff and Raphael Warnock, seriously, like Warnock is like a little mini Jeremiah Wright. He's awful. And he has said some really crazy, toxic, poisonous things. And he sort of pretends like bringing any of them up is just a low blow. And he's just a gosh darn puppy-loving pastor. It's like, no, dude, we can see the things that you've been preaching from your pulpit.
Yeah, video exists. YouTube exists.
Right. It's not a smear. It's not a smear, to use your own words. And then, like, my disdain for Ossoff is deeper because Warnock's at least, like, tried to do something with his life.
Right.
And Ossoff, I have yet to determine anything this guy has done ever with his life.
Except he's got a really bad knockoff Barack Obama.
Oh, he's so trying to be Obama.
It's amazingly
it's so, and like, and so like he's what, my age, I want to say, and he's even less accomplished than I am. Like, you have no business being in the Senate. And like David Perdue's got to be like, I have done so many things in my life. How is this clown even within shouting distance? But look, we're in a polarized country. I think it was Smug who tweeted the GIF of like there were 3 like heads. One was Buttigieg, one was Beto, and one was Ossoff. And you could just like interchangeably put the head on the body and like the lights come, alive in the eyes. And you've got that type of politician just interchangeably. Yeah. And I thought that was actually pretty insightful. I am not a fan of that breed of Democrat.
That's totally brilliant. I love it. We've got 3 questions for you. Before I get to that, Smug wanted me to ask you about your thoughts on Rubio's vaccination.
So yeah, I actually addressed this this week on the radio show.
You did? Okay. So you have well formulated thoughts.
Yeah, I think if you look at the video very closely or the photo very closely, they did some misdirection, but the person administering the shot is Smug. So he moonlights as a nurse. That's how really he makes his money. People don't know that. I don't want to reveal too much about him, but so my position is you have to have the same position on Rubio as you do on AOC getting the vaccine. Like either you think it is indefensible for younger, healthier people to be getting the shot ahead of others who need it more in terms of demographics and vulnerability, right? Either you think it's bad for Rubio and for AOC, or you think, yes, they are not nearly as vulnerable, but it is worthwhile to have major figures with large followings, devotees like Smug in the case, really actually of both of them. He's the rare crossover AOC Marco fan, but mostly you have different camps of people who support those politicians, and they both have a significant engagement on social media to show, yes, I believe this is safe, this is effective, I'm going to take it, and setting that example to try to instill confidence. I think there's a strong argument to be made in favor of that decision. I see both sides of it, but I think you've got to have the same position for both of them, because it seems like the people screaming at Rubio are libs like Democrats and Smug, and the people screaming at AOC are conservatives, and then they sort of like back off if it's their person. So I lean a little bit toward it is better to have prominent people getting the vaccine to try to drive up confidence in the vaccine. But I had Congressman Mike Gallagher on from Wisconsin this week, and I really like him. And he's roughly my age, and he took the opposite view and articulated his position why very well. And I think that makes sense also.
You're really going to stir Smug up with this.
Oh, he gets to rebut it when I'm not here to defend myself.
Yeah.
After the segment. So people, he's going
to take his time with this one. Guys.
He's stewing. I can picture him. He's just stewing. He's watching little YouTube clips of blurry fireworks, which is what he does in his free time, pumping himself up to respond to my barbs.
It's so good. Well, listen, hey, thank you. We've got 3 questions for you that we asked.
Oh, by the way, one other thing. We were supposed to talk about media bias, so let me just say, just overwhelmingly garbage.
It's all garbage.
It's so bad. They're not even pretending. They're not going to try to pretend. The Hunter Biden story, the way that they have or have not covered that is mind-blowing. Also, the one that is stuck in my craw, maybe more than any story, is it's a toss-up between the way that they covered the protests / riots versus any other gathering that they don't like.
That's right.
And then the way they have covered Ron DeSantis and his handling of the pandemic versus Andrew Cuomo. My brain melts down whenever I think for more than 5 or 6 seconds about it because it makes me so angry. Anyway, garbage is my basic answer.
Well, we're with you, and we're going to talk a little bit about that. We're going to talk a little bit about how they all self-promote in the program as well. So anyway, Guy Benson, thank you. Well, here's your first question.
Yeah.
And these, by the way, have great significance. They tell us a lot about your character, a lot about sort of the inner Guy Benson. So the first is your last meal. What would it be?
I've wrestled with this one. The meal that I look forward to the most every year is the full Thanksgiving feast. Yeah. But that's kind of tied up in tradition in the holiday. I would say I'm going to go full, like, effete coastal elite and say like a fabulous, really, really delicious, high-end, fresh sushi dinner.
Wow.
Yeah.
Wow, we haven't had that one yet.
Yeah.
That's
like good stuff, not like the stuff that you get at the supermarket. Like I want really good stuff. If it's the last one,
a sashimi of sorts. You don't want like the roll. The California roll's not.
Yeah, I want the chef preparing each roll by hand, and he doesn't speak a word of English, right? Because he's just come over from Osaka or something like that. That would be just fantastic.
You've left an elitist opening for Smug to capitalize upon. You know that guy.
Oh, that's fine. But he exudes elitism. It's really his brand. Right? He's like, I love real America, as he slips into his $800 bed slippers, to get ready for the evening with a $700 cigar and a one sip of scotch that probably costs, more than my car. That's fine.
All this is fair.
It's something to aspire to, frankly. Okay. I don't hold that against him. I hold a lot against him, but not his elitism.
Okay. All right. So number 2, if you're not in politics or political journalism, Guy, what is it that you do with yourself?
Sports broadcasting.
I love it. God, I love it. I read something about you. Did you do that in high school?
And college. Yep. I did all 4 years of high school and 4 years at Northwestern. Football, basketball, hockey, lacrosse, baseball, softball. I did a lot of it. I did 4 summers in the Cape Cod Baseball League.
Yeah,
for the Chatham-A's with my buddy who's now a professional sportscaster. He's in the NHL. He's the Vegas Golden Knights play-by-play guy. Yeah.
It must be terrific. There's nobody that does better play-by-play than hockey broadcasters.
He's really, really talented. I was not always – I could keep up with football just barely because it's like punctuated bursts of action.
Sure.
Basketball and hockey, where it's constant movement, is a real challenge. Baseball was my forte. I was pretty good at baseball.
That's awesome.
Yeah, sports play-by-play. I miss it sometimes.
Play-by-play guy. Did you do any of the color, or you just straight play-by-play?
Well, I mean, I did because we would switch off in various assignments. Who was play-by-play, who was color, depending on, at Northwestern you had different jobs depending on the game. In the Cape Cod Baseball League, we would alternate innings, not exactly, but each of us would have certain innings to do. So by default, if you weren't on play-by-play, you'd go into color. I just always felt kind of clownish doing it because this may come as a surprise. I'm not really an athlete. So for me to sort of be giving really hardcore analysis on these sports that I have never played in any serious or organized way, I was out of my depth. So you did it, you kind of mimicked what you would hear, and like some of the cliches would come out, but it was not my area of expertise. I felt much more comfortable on play-by-play just describing what's happening in front of me, and then preferably turning to someone who knows what the hell they're talking about to explain it.
I love it. Well, we would definitely pay to watch this again. I would love to have you, Guy, broadcasting a game that I'm watching. Let me get to the third question. This is arguably the most important. What motivates you more, the thrill of victory or the agony of defeat?
It's a tough one because, like with sports, my most powerful memories tend to be thrill of victory. You're always scarred by the bad defeats, and as a Northwestern fan, we've seen our fair share of those, right? So
that one, right?
Well, I mean, they played pretty well, against Ohio State, and we got a nice bowl game coming up, although I won't bore you with talking about the transfer portal, and a nice basketball win over Michigan State, top 5 team, the other night. But you go back, like throughout the entire second half of the Michigan State game, we just dominated Spartans wire to wire. We're up like 18 points in the second half, and all my friends are in a group chat saying, "Oh man, this loss is going to suck. The collapse is coming any minute." Like we're sort of conditioned because we remember those collapses.
Listen, I'm from Minnesota. We have a long history in this regard, so I can sympathize.
Yeah. So like you definitely, it's like in the back of your mind. But like when I think about the moments in sports where I have been overjoyed to the point of like almost getting emotional, it's always the thrill of victory. Mm-hmm. And politics is just sort of, I guess it's got to be different for you because you're so invested because you're working, in your case, like for a specific candidate. Like I'm rooting for people. There are politicians that I really like. Like when Obama won again in 12.
Yeah.
Like that was a tough pill to swallow.
Worst.
But I go back, I think I was in college in 2004 and walking into poli-sci class the day after Bush won and people were like literally in mourning. Oh, that was fun. Right. So I think maybe I'm a more of thrill of victory.
Yeah. I think you've outlined in specific detail where you land. I think you've helped us through this, and we've helped you, frankly, Guy.
There's really some color analysis, actually, if you think about it.
It really was. Listen, man, we can't thank you enough for your time. We enjoy everything you do. We appreciate the candor that you bring to your job at Fox every day and on your show. I really can't say enough good things about your show. You got great content on that.
Well, I appreciate that, and I hope people will check it out. If you need a second podcast on the depth chart underneath Ruthless, you can check out Guy Benson Show podcast, which is free. Your podcast opened the very first time I heard it with the montage.
Yes.
Oh, my God, I lost it. You don't think, you never do. That one got to me so good, and you guys are, I think, filling a realm that needs to be filled on the right, and it's enjoyable and it's fun. So hats off, and I'm just honored that you guys were willing to have me, even though it was, frankly, just you. But, Smug's got the knives sharp. He's got his beautiful set of Jinsu knives ready to go.
He does. I can assure you. Thank you, Guy. You have a great night.
Merry Christmas.
Merry Christmas. So he gave you the business, Smug.
Yeah, well, I mean, you know what? Nice guy, still someone who I love having a drink with. It's just short guys have their own chip on their shoulder, and I don't know what else to say about that. Great guy, though. And it was great of him to come on the show. We really appreciate that.
It was a good show. We got all the stuff in. We're going to come back to you one more time before Christmas, folks. We love doing this. And
we need a quick, we promised the folks a little bit on Georgia.
Yeah. Oh, so, God. You know what? I know. And I've gotten the business from people forgetting it. I'm not going to make that mistake. So here's the thing in Georgia, guys. Early voting is open. Mm-hmm. It's wide open. You can go to your poll anytime you want. Democrats are really, really good at busing people to go do this.
Yeah.
If you are waiting for some reason to vote, I don't care how you go about getting yourself to the poll. Just get there. Make it happen. Vote now. Make sure you get it in there. I've been assured by a full team of election lawyers, directly, there is no funny business here. We have got people on every precinct, every ground, litigation ongoing. We're not screwing around with this. If anybody so much as sneezes on a ballot, they're going to get their asses sued.
Yeah. And that is good to know. I've heard there's an army of Republican lawyers down there keeping an eye on things, especially when you've got a situation where Andrew Yang is asking people to move down to Georgia to be able to vote and then get out. We need every Republican out there voting, making sure we don't have Kamala Harris as the 51st vote in the Senate.
And remember, that's my Christmas present.
Absolutely.
Smug, take us out of here. This has been a great show.
Absolutely. We got another banger in the books. We're going to have another good one right before Christmas. Get folks into the holiday spirit. So, minions, until next time, keep the faith, hold the line, and own the libs. Stay ruthless. We'll see you on Thursday.